Hey, gang, this week's episode is brought to you by Royal Retros, the king of throwbacks. Hey, if you're looking for teams and leagues that don't exist anymore, but you'd like to remember them in high-quality jersey or uniform format, hey, some of those teams were legendary. Some of them were disasters, but they all live at Royal Retros. Check them out. RoyalRetros.com. Use that promo code SEATS for 10% off all of your purchases. Check them out now. And now, check out this episode.
Well, it is, of course, a work in progress to get the new athletic stadium ready for the team by the 2028 season.
And the team has now hit a benchmark. Take a look. New Fox 5 drone showing the progress being made on the site where the Tropicana Hotel once stood. That's where we find Fox 5 sports reporter Mariah Janos. Mariah, construction has hit the 6-month mark now.
Yeah, it's all starting to feel real now that we can see where the ballpark exactly is going to be located on the strip. They've broken ground and it's all starting to just feel really legitimate walking around here today. We're currently outside of the construction site, outside of the ballpark. And let me just go over what they've been doing over the last 6 months as a part of this 31-month build. So it all started, that preliminary work was all subterranean. They poured about 1,000 piles of concrete that went down between 50 and 85 feet to hold up the foundation of the building. And the frame is up at the moment, going around home plate, down the first and third baselines, and the first and second level decks behind home plate are up. So that gave us a great view overlooking the field this afternoon. And the beauty of this structure will be the 5 pennants that made up the roof, which is expected to go up in June. The seats are expected to go in early Q2, they were saying. And manager Mark Kotze, actually, along with his assistant coaches and players, have come by to check out where the clubhouse will be. All the hydrotherapy tubs have been poured. So that foundation work has already been done. It's all really exciting for the players to see that progress as well. And all the dirt from the Tropicana that was excavated has been cleaned up and is being used for infill in different parts of the structure. The ballpark site is 9 acres on a 35-acre parcel controlled by Bally. And earlier we caught up with A's president Mark Bedane about his thoughts so far on the location and the progress of the project.
So the location is ideal, the location is perfect, and it's nice to get you guys on the site because you've obviously just seen renderings, but to get a chance to be out here and see the location and see the proximity to all the other properties on the strip and the location, it's really spectacular. We have, as you know, the building itself is an architectural masterpiece.
So far, it's smooth sailing. Everything is on time to the day, Mark Bedane was telling us, which is awesome. So knock on wood, no holdups going forward, but everything is on track, on pace for that 2028 opening day. But for now, guys, I'll send it back to you in studio.
Welcome to Good Seats Still Available, a curious little podcast devoted to exploring what used to be in professional sports. Here's your host, Tim Hanlon.
All right, let's get this show on the road. My name is Tim Hanlon. It's Good Seats Still Available. How are you, everybody? It's our curious little podcast journey each and every week into what used to be in professional sports. I appreciate you finding us, and I hope your holiday season is well underway and safe and joyful. We got Christmas coming up later this week as we drop this episode for our Jewish friends who are celebrating or finished the celebration of Hanukkah. Hope that went well. And so many other, whatever you celebrate, we hope that you're going to enjoy more to come as the days wind down for the end of 2025. Good riddance in many respects, and hopefully a new page turned as we look into a brand new year very shortly. And of course, around here, that means one and only one thing. It's our annual-ish, 6th annual-ish this year-end Holiday Roundtable Spectacular. Yes, you know it, you love it, you can't live without it. It's what everybody waits for with bated breath each and every year at this time. And we are back with hot takes on defunct teams and leagues and stuff, and hot predictions on perhaps some of the things currently and in the future that may someday join them. And it is a spirited conversation as it has been in years past, and this year will be no exception. It is an exception, though, however, because this year was also the year that we lost one of our key contributors to these conversations. Steve Holroyd, as you may know, a longtime supporter of this show, one of our most active guests on a whole bunch of different topics, soccer, and lacrosse and cricket and that kind of stuff. Steve untimely passed in I think it was the late spring, early summer of this year. Devastating to all who knew him. A stand-up guy and a more enthusiastic defunct sports a guy you would not find, and a real big champion and supporter of the show and a friend. And he is dearly missed. And I know that he would have wanted a show like this to keep going. So we're going to do our darndest to do it. And also Andy Crossley, who you may remember in past years, who was part of the shenanigans around this conversation each and every year at the end of each year. He's essentially kind of retired from this kind of stuff. I don't blame him. It takes a real odd passion and interest and perhaps a genetic predisposition to keep at this kind of thing. So we hope he's enjoying listening to this for a change versus having to kind of contribute to it this year. But the three folks we have assembled for you, no slouches they, and let's get right to them, shall we? Paul Reeths is back. You may remember him from a few of these, including last year, of course. Paul Reeths is got his hand in a lot of things, but first and foremost was his episode 46 tour of duty with us. As we talked about, I think it was one of, if not the first exploration that we did of the old USFL. And the bona fides there is Paul's book, which continues to be the quintessential go-to tome for all things USFL. It's called the United States Football League, 1982 to 1986. And it is chock full of stats and narrative, and it's probably the best researched referenced book you will find about the USFL. Paul is also the chief progenitor of two outstanding websites. One's called OurSportsCentral.com, just chock full of minor league stats and news and that kind of stuff, as well as StatsCrew.com, where a lot of these leagues, both present and past, their statistics are being built out to live on in perpetuity. Not to be outdone is our pal Kenn Tomasch. He was actually an earlier guest back in our earliest days, episode number 39. We talked about the Indiana Twisters, of all things, the Continental Indoor Soccer League team. And Kenn is a wonder in and of himself. Lots of things there, including the new Sports Rewind web series on YouTube. Should check that out. A lot of great stuff there unearthed and revisited. And Kenn also has I would argue, the best compilation of forgotten sports stuff this side of funwhileitlasted.net, Andy Crossley's old site, which is now, by the way, can be found at our friends at royalretros.com, who absorbed that website and continues to keep that alive with all that great research that Andy did over the years. But giving it a run for its money is Kenn.com. That's KENN, 2 N's.com, where you will find all kinds of stuff related to forgotten teams and leagues and franchises, and you name it. I mean, it's attendance figures, all kinds of stuff. It is a marvel. And Kenn will be joining us in a moment's time as well as he says, with our pal Scott Adamson, who, of course, you will remember from our episode numbered 184. And that is our look deeply at the life and times of the football odyssey that is Birmingham, Alabama. You'll remember his book, which is still available for purchase, and a great read called The Home Team, My Bromance with Off-Brand Football. And Scott's a longtime sports columnist, writer, still at it, Cosmos fan of all things, but also a great purveyor of tales when it comes to Birmingham and sports, and in particular, the various minor and challenger leagues in football. All these three gentlemen are supremely qualified to continue this this little journey that we've created for ourselves at the end of each year. And I'm not going to waste any more time. We're not going to hit you with any kind of merch purchase entreaties this week because it is the holidays. Hopefully you've done all your shopping. Let's get into a fun-filled conversation about the past and present of, shall we say, forgotten sports and teams and leagues and stuff. And we touch a whole bunch of things here. NASCAR, the antitrust thing, and the FIFA World Cup coming up and the craziness there. And what we just heard about the supposedly still Las Vegas A's and their stadium apparently is close to being real now, as that reporter from Fox there in Las Vegas tells us. Apparently some stuff is happening besides just dirt moving around. We're going to talk about other things like expansion in the NBA, like Seattle and potentially Las Vegas. We're going to talk about Major League Soccer and their move to the European schedule and the challenges that they're going to be facing from the USL divisions below them. Of course, the UFL will be making an appearance as it retools by a bunch of teams leaving and some new ones coming online and the like. The Savannah Bananas, we're going to talk about minor league baseball and private equity suddenly discovering those assets. Major League Cricket, Major League Rugby, two different stories, but all struggling to kind of get their toeholds. Volleyball, lots of professional volleyball. We got 4 leagues now merging or kind of becoming 3. We'll see how many of those last. We talk about the Premier Lacrosse League and the new Women's Pro Baseball League, and we say good riddance or at least goodbye to the LA Bowl and the Bahamas Bowl and the college circuit and the NFL and international and pro flag football and on and on and on, all kinds of stuff coming your way. Here it is. It's our great conversation. Kick back, relax, and as always, please enjoy. We are all inflicted with this disease, I guess, of forgotten sports and teams and leagues and all that kind of stuff. And I hugely appreciate you guys making time because, as you know, we've done these sort of little roundtable things at the end of the year. Each year we've done this show-ish. And you guys have been probably the most persistent, I guess, in your defunct sports enthusiasm, shall we say, over the years. As you may remember, we kind of started this exercise with not only with Paul, but with Andy Crossley, who was our second ever guest, and the dearly departed Steve Holroyd, who was, I guess, who had given himself sort of the green jacket of this show. Not that there's any worth to that, because he had been on so many times. But we want to keep this kind of thing going on and stuff. And I greatly appreciate you. Number one, your individual enthusiasms, if that's a word, if I can make a noun out of that. And I just love the opportunity to kind of remind myself that maybe I'm not the only one. So I appreciate making the time. So maybe we'll just start with each of you, if you don't mind, and give us a little bit of a background on who you each individually are, and maybe some of your current endeavors. And we're going to promote at the end as well, but if you want to sort of throw out some promotional stuff too. And Paul, since you are now the effective dean of this conversation, why don't we start with you? Football clearly is part of your lifeblood, as I see in your background.
That's right. I was kind of inflicted, as you say, with this disease when the original United States Football League played. It just hit me when I was a young man getting into football. Loved the fact that we had year-round high-quality football. And that's what really drew me into this. And it was kind of the slippery slope of the Major Indoor Soccer League and all these minor league baseball teams that kept reeling me in. So I used that passion and I established a couple of websites. The first is OurSportsCentral.com, which monitors minor leagues primarily, and also some of the higher majors such as the MLS and WNBA, which don't get which hadn't received a lot of attention until maybe the last few years. That website's been running for over 25 years now. And my second website is Stats Crew, which compiles stats for many of these leagues, not only major leagues, but also some of these obscure minor leagues. And then I'm also the author of the United States Football League, 1982 to 1986, which was kind of this passion project where I was able to interview and interview so many people and dissect the life of the league.
It's kind of the Bible, actually. You're kind of underselling it. It's really kind of the authoritative, I think, tome of what went on during that league during that time. And I know that because I see all the 5-star ratings about it. So I think it's kind of you got to keep that thing in print, right? Because that thing is a very much sought after resource.
I appreciate that description, and most of that then would be credited to the people who lived through that, the players, coaches, owners, commissioners, all the people who spoke to me or whose words were used in the book. They really were. I wanted to let them tell the story.
Well, and I think you successfully did that, and perhaps even time for a revisit. Well, we'll talk about the UFL and all that stuff in a few minutes. All right, we'll give you. I know you're teed up for that. Kenn, why don't we go to you next? You are just a font of all kinds of activities and stuff. So if you can corral them for us and hopefully give our listeners a bit of a sense. And a reminder, Paul was one of our original guests, episode number 46, and then the recap shows. Kenn was actually earlier than that. You were our episode number 39, and you were probably just shocked that I was calling you about the Indianapolis or Indiana Twisters from the old CSL back in the day.
I was. So before, I was a radio and television sportscaster for just shy of 30 years. But before that, I was a fan, and especially of exactly the types of sports that we're talking about today. I mean, I fell in love with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at first because I lived through 0-26, but we also had the Rowdies. We also had, over time, we had the teams like the Tampa Bay Thrillers, and we had, all these kind of things that I had an affinity for. And I discovered that, and the Tampa Bay Storm and things like that. So I discovered that these more obscure type of leagues in some ways were more meaningful to me, maybe because of their quirkiness, maybe because of their ramshackleness, maybe just because they seemed more visceral or more just, I was more attuned to them than the major league sports. And as time has gone on, that hasn't waned, because the major sports to me are now so corporate and so just so far away from what they were when I first became a sports fan that I still latch on to the kind of minor league things for all the reasons that we always talk about, the weird promotions and the crazy names and things that happen like that. So my big projects at the moment are some historical stuff, because modern sports, like I said, is a little bit off-putting at the moment. So the two historical things are Soccer Rewind, which is based on entire vintage American soccer broadcasts, augmented with interviews with people who lived through that game, either a player or a coach or a historian or a broadcaster or journalist or whatever. So I like to tell stories that haven't been told before, like the mobsters who owned the 1980-81 Phoenix Inferno of the MISL. That was a story that nobody was telling. And so to be able to tell that story. The other one is Sports Rewind, which is more moment or story based, but not in as long a form, not based on a given game, but more, here are historical stories that are undertold, like the 1938 New York Football Giants, which no one knows about. They had a couple of Hall of Famers and were a great, great team no one talks about, or the 1944 World Series, which was closer than you think. And an upcoming episode that I'm really looking forward to, one on George Foreman's first life as a boxer, which a lot of people think of him as the roly-poly pitch man, very good natured, but he was a bad man first time around. And then this one I'm just going to get is the one of the screenwriters of The Fish That Saved Pittsburgh.
Oh, fantastic.
Excellent 1979 disco meets basketball meets Dr. J film is going to be on Sports Rewind in the coming months. So those are the things that keep me busy.
That's fantastic. And I'll make some allusions to some other things, but some two in particular that I've been just phenomenally floored by, Kenn, is number one is your deep dive into the Twisters of the old CISL. I want to think that maybe we had a little something to do with that inspirationally, but I love the fact that you keep that team alive and with the people that were there at part of that thing, because the stories that have emanated since then have been terrific. And the one I was just completely I love was you figured out a way to discover that old American Soccer League final where the New York Apollo, that to me feels like a holy grail of sorts. I didn't even know that existed.
And nobody did. And it's only because of the contacts that I made in several, 20 something years of working in the game. And someone said, "Hey, I found something that might be of interest to you." Nobody knew it still existed. Nobody had seen it. The 3/4 inch tapes had been sitting in Charlie Catone's office on the top of something for years and years. Sadly, there were only 2 of the 3. The one in the middle that includes the goal was not there. But still, I was amazed at how pristine, once we got them out and got them digitized, that video looked pretty good. And that's why we talk about stories that haven't been told. So then it started with Charlie, but then I found one of the players, Chris Tyson, who played in that game. And Brian Parkinson, who's the goalie for LA in that game, is going to come on a future like extra episode just to kind of augment some of that. So yeah, I really was particularly proud of that one. And it's been the best, most viewed video on the channel to date. And we've been on a little bit of a hiatus while I get some stuff sorted, but I like that one too.
Well, I don't know. Maybe I was the one that was watching it more often than not. So perhaps skewing the rankings. I doubt it, though. And last but not least, Scott Adamson, you were a guest on our episode number 184. And I think the reason I originally reached out to you was your book on Birmingham football, which to me is so quintessentially perfect for this conversation. But I've become addicted to your blog since then. Including your latest column about the bowl season, which we'll get into because it's very timely for this conversation and stuff. But how about some background on you? Because I think you, of the 4 of us, are actually you're literally credentialed as a sports guy, sports writer, et cetera.
Yeah, now it's more or less a hobby. I did newspaper work for 30 years and I retired in 2017. And started my website, adamsonmedia.com. And what I wanted to do with that was basically just have fun and kind of, touch on some of the things that were important to me, but that I never really got to cover as a newspaper writer. I go back to my days as a fan of the World Football League and then the USFL. And, of course, my book was based on the various pro football teams that Birmingham has had. But other than the Birmingham Barracudas and that one season in the CFL, I never really got a chance to cover any of those teams. So when I wrote the book, that was kind of a way to just sort of relive the memory of it. And even now that I'm an old AARP guy, I still, I'll look back at the Birmingham Americans and Vulcans and Stallions and everything. And it's just, they just bring back fond memories, even though I had a friend visit one time and she was looking at some of my memorabilia and she goes, this is kind of a room that celebrates the dead. And I go, well, I guess maybe it does because all these leagues have vanished now, but they're still very much alive with me.
Are there any, I know you've written a lot about, and it's interesting because every couple of weeks there seems to be a new mid-tier or forgotten or idea, concept of a football league that seems to come and go. Is there anything in that trove, in that realm, that is particularly interesting to you, and or that you have a special fondness for? I know, for example, that you're a Cosmos fan, which strikes me as interesting because you're a guy who lives in Birmingham. And I don't think and I think you lived elsewhere in the South, but I don't think you ever lived in New York. Did you?
No, I didn't. But for some bizarre reason that I can never fully understand, New York, even when I was a child, I just adopted New York and said, okay, that's my city. My sports teams are going to be based in New York. So, I started out, the first pro football team I ever rooted for was the Jets. And then I became a soccer fan. Maybe I was a little ahead of the curve on that, especially being in Alabama. But I'll never forget, June 1975, here comes Pele up the steps at Downing Stadium, Cosmos versus, Dallas. And, that was the day that turned me into an NASL and a Cosmos fan. And, I understand that the new iteration of the Cosmos, it's just the
new iteration of the Cosmos in the USL division.
Yeah, absolutely the latest. But I'm still going to cheer for them. When they start next March, I'm going to be the longtime Cosmos fan from Alabama who cheers for the new version of them.
We got to get you a ticket to Patterson, New Jersey. By the way, you got to fly into Newark. So just so you know.
That's okay. It'd be worth it.
All right. This is all right. So I appreciate this, and we'll let you guys promote at the end of all this too. So I know I sent you guys a bunch of sort of just a litany of ideas and stuff to sort of talk about stuff. But let me just throw out a couple of ideas maybe to kind of get us started. And I think I kind of hinted at one of them. And Paul, I'm going to put you on the spot kind of beginning. Obviously, your USFL roots and all that kind of stuff. We've talked about the last number of years of this spring football kind of phenomenon. What the hell's going on with the UFL this year in your mind? And then I'll let you guys all pile on.
Yeah, I think it's largely a reboot. They had somebody else jump into the ownership group, somebody with some business experience who's taken the reins a little bit. And it's been a total reexamination of the markets, of their coaching, everything top down, which is probably overdue. And I think some of the reorganization that we've seen is a reflection of areas where particularly the new USFL had made some very bad strategic errors. In particular, I think they hurt the markets in which they played. When you go into a market such as Birmingham, you're going to have to prove yourself. I mean, Birmingham has football fans. We know that. But they hubbed in Birmingham. They treated it really like a television program, and they knew they needed fans as props in the stands. They totally disregarded any ticket revenue for the most part, offering $10 tickets. In Memphis, I think you could sit for like $3 in the end zone if I worked out the season ticket totals right. So you get to the point then a year or two later when you merge with the XFL and realize, you know what, we probably should have some revenue from tickets. Well, how do you go and ask those same people now for $20, $30, $40 for those tickets? I think Birmingham took a little bit of a hit on that, like, oh, you're not even going to be able to keep your team, when it was really due to those initial mistakes in the market. And so now we see not only an acknowledgement that some of that strategy was flawed, but some of the places in which they were playing were flawed. They were just too big. It looked bad on TV. So let's reduce the size of these stadiums to these soccer fields, which hold half or less of the previous fields, and it has a much better chance of looking good on TV.
Scott, you're Mr. Birmingham. Did you go to any of these games? What was your take on it locally? What was the feeling there? I mean, obviously they've been successful, at least in terms of play. The new Birmingham team had been.
Yeah, I guess I actually covered him for my website. The first 3 seasons, I guess. I finally decided last year that since I wasn't getting paid, I wouldn't do it anymore. But the thing about Birmingham, we like to pretend that we're this great sports town, but we're really not. I mean, if it's the University of Alabama, if their football team or basketball team or baseball team comes to town, sure. But everything else you really struggle with. I mean, the G League team struggles. The USL championship team. I mean, everything just has a hard time, bringing fans in, even football. And, I think back in the day, because the original USFL and the WFL, they drew well, but it was obviously a much different world. It was pre-internet. There were less things to do. And, back in the day, if you wanted to see a football game, you pretty much had to go to the football game. And now, with the UFL, every game is on TV. And I look at it from the standpoint of, especially a guy that has to go to the bathroom more than I used to when I was younger. It's kind of nice to just sit at home. You've got the games on television, your refrigerator's there. You got all the comforts of home, and you're getting a very high quality, production value out of it. So, I think it's one of those things, you have to have the exposure, but in a lot of ways, I think it really hurts the in-house attendance, because Birmingham is one of the top cities as far as watching it on TV, but they really struggle to draw 10,000 people.
Yeah, Ken, do you have any thoughts on UFL generally, and maybe even frankly for my and we'll sort of maybe segue into some other stuff here. Columbus and Louisville and Orlando as new markets, and or the soccer specific stadium thing taking on new life as being now the home of a spring football league.
Oh, do I have thoughts? My thing is, with all these attempts in recent years of spring football is I have never seen that there's a point for this. And I get Fox and NBC, where it's television programming. And if you put gridiron football on television in the United States of America, it will draw an audience. We're in a bowl season where there will be completely ridiculous bowls between completely ridiculous teams, many of whose players have opted out, and someone will watch it and they will be able to make money of it. So I get from that point, but we're creating these leagues and pumping millions of dollars into them and losing big amounts of money because people are not buying tickets. And I keep hearing, well, it's to watch players develop, and players are not. I'm seeing a handful of guys get NFL shots on practice squads, and then when it comes right down to an emergency situation, the Colts sign a 44-year-old guy who'd been retired for 5 years instead of getting one of these guys who is supposedly developed in one of these spring leagues. Their system, it's different with the Colts because of the relationship with Rivers and their head coach and the system and all that. But still, the point being, there's just not this, there's not a huge demand. Anybody who grew up as a Michigan Panthers fan either looks and goes, well, that's not the Michigan Panthers that I grew up on. I can tell the difference. And anyone who's a Gen Z or a millennial now goes, nah, I have so many other things. Why do I have to do this? So I just don't see the point. The USFL, I loved the USFL. It was a genuine attempt mounted to change the status quo. It was quirky. It was lovely. It was fun as all hell, and ultimately flawed enough that, it didn't work, but it worked a hell of a lot better than anything that has come after it in terms of spring football. And I look back on it fondly, but I look at this now and I go, where's the appeal? Where's the demand? Where is it when like you say, when nobody can go to a game? And Birmingham, Scott, apologies, but they were sold a bill of goods when they said, well, here, we'll front you the money for that first hub season. And it'll be great, because as if someone in Omaha was going to watch a spring game from Birmingham and hear, I think I'll take my entire family to Birmingham for a vacation for spring break. And that was flawed from the get-go in my mind. And I just haven't seen the point of it. I don't watch and not feeling it.
And I think, that's a great point, because there should be a point to that. One of the things that, when we look at recent spring football, what have they done to change the landscape? Well, the XFL kickoff was one of those things. That is now employed in the NFL. If we're not developing players to any great degree, can we develop the game in a league like the UFL? Can we test rules innovations? Can we test, what's quirky, new, and different, and where the game is going, without making it a joke? And I think that that's really where the league could set itself apart, could make itself more of an entertainment product. Can we make it arena football outside? I don't know, but what can they do to make things different?
You're always hearing about, well, there's this thirst for football year round, but is it really? I mean, because as the other guys have touched on, you got the NFL, now you look at, elite college football, which is just another version of pro football, basically. And frankly, when I get to the spring, and it's nothing against spring football leagues, because it's fine and dandy, and it does give, guys who can't make it in the NFL, it gives them another paycheck. I mean, they're making, decent money playing for these leagues. But yeah, it's hard to just, for me to develop any kind of, deep passion for it. As the guys have mentioned before, back in the original USFL, that was good football. By the time you got to 85, you had a handful of teams that could have competed in the NFL, And then the WFL, it never got to that point, but it was aspirational. You had a few cool rules, and if they had been able to make it financially and sign some of the NFL players that they had coming, in 76, 77, that would have been a hell of a league. But, those days are over. And then I just don't think you're going to see anything come up that's going to turn so many heads and make people think, wow, this is like a companion piece to the NFL. I really like this.
Yeah, look, and the those others that you mentioned, right, were largely and somewhat unabashedly challenger leagues, right, to the mighty NFL. And yet at the same time, the NFL just seems to keep growing and expanding its tentacles which will be sort of a hopefully smart segue into the international thing, right? So they are, we've talked about the the World League of American Football and NFL Europa and all that kind of stuff in our previous journeys. But it seems to me that the NFL is doubling down on its international expansion. It seems to me that with the going into places like Berlin and other markets, certainly European, but also South American, it feels to me like there's a Sunday morning window that's kind of inevitable now, where football will be on Sundays beginning in the mornings, and there'll be literally 4 national windows for games going forward every Sunday. What do we think about international expansion and the travel and all that kind of stuff? Is it inevitable, or is it just going to be the beginning of is it too much?
I think the NFL is hell bent on it. And like you said, doubling down. I mean, the fact they've expanded the number of regular season games in various places means they're serious about it. The logistical issues with having teams several time zones away, the travel, the different tax things, the different monetary units, that presents a very logistical problem. And the other thing that gets me, not from a fan perspective, but because of my OCD perspective, is the NFL is set up pretty perfectly right now with 32 teams and 8 divisions of 4 teams. And so if they add one team in London, unless somebody moves, now you've got 33. This throws me off. They have a perfect scheduling formula. They have all these things going for them. Are they going to create a division? Are they going to, I mean, we've basically done this, although at the lower level, like you said, with the WLAF, which was also experimental, and they gave guys a chance to produce and develop and stuff like that. But I think you're right. I think that there will be at some point an international game almost every week, and every team will be required to play one, or however the math works out. They'll be traveling all over the place, so that there is that television window first thing Sunday morning. And if you live, on the West Coast, you'll be able to get up early and you'll be able to see all the way through to that evening. And I think the NFL sees real value in that. Plus the untapped markets over there, right? If those people are really as fervent as they are, I'm not sure that people in London would go to 8 or 9 home games a year for a London team, but they'll go to 3 of various teams.
Yeah, and we have been there before, right, Paul? I mean, with there were teams there in the World League, and they were well attended, the first ones, right? But not necessarily a whole season's worth per se. I think Kenn's right.
And it's a different. It was a different age, and I think kind of the subtext of this and of your question that involved a broadcast window, is that the NFL can't do this on kind of the other natural days to do this, which would be Fridays and Saturdays. They can't, between the middle of September and the middle of December, they can't broadcast Fridays after a certain time and all Saturday. They're prohibited from that within 75 miles of a high school football game. Of course, you would not have that problem if you're international, so you could conceivably stage games outside the U.S. on those days. But probably the more immediate thing that they're looking at is that Sunday morning broadcast window, because there aren't many windows left. So you can hit that window, and that means there's more games to sell. Otherwise, the NFL is kind of reaching, I don't know if they're reaching a saturation point, but where we can see the limited possibilities of them being able to expand broadcast partners and broadcast windows. I mean, you could have more games on at the same time, maybe a doubleheader on Monday nights, East Coast, West Coast. But other than that, their hands are tied a little bit.
And that's why
they're in a great spot with their broadcast revenue, of course, but they're always looking to expand it.
And that's why, Paul, I think it's inevitable. The 18th game is inevitable. And so that opens up for them the possibilities. It's just a matter of getting the union to sign off on it. And that creates more inventory that they can sell. And they can say, these can all be international games.
And you can push that. Let's say the deal with the union is, give us the 18th game, we give you a second bye. All right. Now you have 2 more weeks that are either going to be before that college broadcast restriction or after the college broadcast restriction. So you open up a lot more windows that way.
I think that just makes sense. No, I was just saying, I remember, thinking, well, it's like Ken said, do you move a team to London, or do you expand to 40 franchises and have 8 international teams? But excuse me, it does make sense to me that you just finally reach a point where you have 18 international games, and that, the people in Europe, excuse me, it's almost like a golf tournament or something. It's an event for them every week for 18 weeks. And I think if you get to that point, then maybe you've satisfied everyone. No, you don't necessarily have a team located in Europe, but you have games in Europe, for 18 weeks. So everybody's happy.
Well, it's almost like the festival model, right? Which we've seen with fledgling leagues like Premier Lacrosse, right? Or a lot of other fledgling leagues, right? They'll do sort of we'll take the show to town. We'll bring the 4 or 8 franchises in name only per se, or that like the big 3 does this, right? Where in essence, it's just kind of like a traveling circus, if you will, that ostensibly hits all the markets at least once, and it becomes festival-like, so that it's truly more of an event than it is, a season ticket, commitment of like 16 matches.
Right.
And I guess I'd like to pull the room on how compelling people feel that approach is, especially with as you mentioned, the Premier Lacrosse League. They've kind of started to dip their toes into some home markets. Is that an acknowledgement that the traveling festival has kind of run its course? Or, what do you guys think? Is that a viable way to go forward?
Well, I will throw one point of asterisk in that question, and then you remember too, though, that these the teams that were touring in the PLL's first kind of iterations, right, were these faux kind of like ESPN2 type names from the 90s, right? That the Archers and there weren't any domiciled in markets and stuff. So there was an artificiality to that too. But maybe this makes a difference, especially if there's a market that's been defined that they actually go to. So there's a hint of affiliation when they come to town. I don't know.
I wondered if these spring football leagues should try that. Just go with the unbranded, just have team nicknames, try to develop your players as far as personalities, and then do that, like go to Louisville for bring the league to Louisville for a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday thing. And that way you don't, but then you start doing that and you're dealing with all the expense of travel and stuff. So after I thought, man, that sounds like a really good idea, I realized, there's no way that could work.
The essence of sports that makes it compelling is in the emotional connection. Else you are simply rooting for 22 guys running into each other for 3 hours on a football field. You have to have that connection. That's why whenever they do we're going to practice here during the week and then we'll just fly out to games, there's no real community connection. You may go to games in your market and you may go, well, we all got hooked when we were between the ages of 9 and 14 or whatever, on that pageantry and stuff. But the emotional connection takes time to develop, and you don't just go, oh, I grew up a Houston Roughnecks fan for their 2 years that they were in existence. There has to be that emotional connection. And when you strip the two things you need, when you strip the emotional connection of the closeness and the historical perspective, right? You are a Bears fan because your dad was a Bears fan, and his dad before him was a Bear fan, and his dad went to games at Wrigley Field and all those things. That carries through, and it takes time to do. In Major League Soccer, for instance, we're just to the point now after 30 years where there are second and third generation people. And so there are people who have grown up with the Chicago Fire. There are people who have grown up with the various iterations of New York, of Metro Stars and Red Bulls and whatever. So that connection takes hold. You can actually go and see it. You can feel it. You can be there. And you can't do that when it's guys training in Toronto all week lacrosse, and then they fly to your city and play a game on Sunday afternoon, and then they turn around and leave.
Yeah, look, I think it's a challenge especially if you're a fledgling league and or a fledgling sport, right? Which is kind of like a double whammy, right? The idea of touring, event-based thing, the idea of having actual teams named either in reality or for puffery's sake with a city or a location, like the PBR, right? The bull riding thing, right? The Camping World Series, they've got a team series now, right? But the key is that they literally visit during the course of all the PBR events that tour, right? At least once in those cities, so that at least there's a quote unquote, but the rest of the time, right? It's these other 7 they're never home and there's never any roots and stuff. It's interesting. I look at strangely at volleyball. I know you guys have been paying attention to the volleyball thing. There were 4 pro leagues. They're now merging into 3. But one is this Love B, or the League One volleyball, which Billie Jean King is part of the investment mix and stuff. And the first 2 seasons, they've actually their approach to this has actually been a hybrid, where their schedule is literally a handful of home games for each of their domiciled teams. But then they do like once a month these sort of like mini festivals where it's like a weekend, a 2-day kind of thing where all the teams are playing in a particular market. Sometimes those are in markets that actually have a team, and sometimes they're not, as I guess is it a sniff of an expansion kind of thing. I thought that was pretty unique given how early the league is. I don't know, maybe it's a hybrid model for others to follow.
Well, I can see, and volleyball seems to be having a moment right now, right? Obviously, there's a lot of interest in it, just like women's sports is having a moment. I think that hybrid approach is an interesting one. I've always thought World Team, or I forget, is it still called World Team Tennis or whatever, Team Tennis or whatever it's called?
Yeah, I don't even know. I actually think it officially does not exist anymore, but
really?
It soldier on for some time, and I don't know. I'm sure there's rumblings of it coming back again at some point.
I thought their model was really great. They compressed their season down. You wouldn't even have a set, like the Washington Castles or something would move their facility every year, and one year it was on top of a hotel, and so I mean that kind of had a short thing, because time commitments are what's hard for people now, right? Like I get pitched season tickets in my local USL team, and I go, dude, I don't want to go to 17 of anything. If my kid was playing, I don't know that I'd want to go to 17 of anything. So the short burst types of things, does that really engender long-term stability and emotional connection? I don't think so. Is it fun for events? Can you maybe make a buck off it? Maybe. Is it good for TV? Maybe. But then you're talking about this substrata of leagues and teams that are just always perpetually going to be churning at the bottom. And they keep Paul's website, God bless him and his website, in business. But there's just, as he knows, they keep churning all the time.
Yeah, and that League One volleyball approach is a little bit more interesting to me, largely because when they do these festivals, they're doing them in another league city. So it's a big deal in Austin, for a weekend. But then Austin also plays home games after that and before that. So you have a benefit in one of your home markets that you can market to your season ticket holders there. You can work with the businesses and the sponsors that you already have there. And all your stuff is already there, which is kind of nice too, from a logistical standpoint. Not that it would be terribly hard with volleyball, but I think that there's a lot of benefit in that. League One volleyball, for those who don't know, it's a little bit of a weird league, not only from that perspective, which is kind of a good thing there, but also the branding on that league, I just don't quite understand. Here's League One Volleyball Houston, which has a weird squiggle that might have horns. And here's League One Volleyball Austin, which is a different squiggle. I don't get the marketing there.
Dare I say, Paul, you may not be in the target market. Just saying.
I would agree. But it's pro volleyball, I will say, is a fantastic product. I've enjoyed it immensely. It's very easy to jump into. You understand the scoring almost immediately, and you can see the athleticism at play. Things that none of us on this call can do, and so it's a great product.
Well, maybe Scott can, because he's invisible to us as we record.
Yeah, I'm stealth.
So I want to go back to a couple other things, and then I'm going to let you guys kind of freeform and just pick your topics du jour. We were talking about the international expansion thing in the NFL. I'm fascinated by this on again, off again flirtation that the NBA has been signaling with their European league, and the idea of either countering or partnering with, or some combination thereof, those two, with the Euro League that is kind of, I don't know, financially been challenged and struggled and that kind of stuff. It just seems to me that the NBA may be almost maybe kind of the vanguard here that the NFL can, learn from. They stood up a league in Africa, right? And it seems to me that this is kind of essentially a done deal. It's just a matter of how it's going to come into play. Now, whether it's a European-centric league, and then there's But what do we think about the NBA? From last I heard, though, the NBA still wants to expand to 2 more markets in the U.S., Vegas being one of them, and I think Seattle being the other. Is there too much NBA, I guess is what I'm saying, or is international the way to go there too?
There's not too much NBA as far as the NBA is concerned. And you talk about the NFL being hell-bent internationally. The NBA recognizes that it has not only a global market for appeal, but a global market for quality players, which you can't really say about the NFL because you can't go to France. You may be able to find a place kicker. Like Australian kickers are like kickers and punters are the thing now. But in the NBA, I would think they would want the best European players playing for their stateside teams. But if not, okay, are they going to go put a team in Madrid or are they going to co-opt Real Madrid's basketball team? Are the players who are currently playing Euros and getting a lot of money, are they going to leave their club teams and a nice cushy lifestyle that they have to play in an NBA Europe League that has the NBA's imprimatur, but really isn't the NBA? Or would they rather come and play for the Knicks? I take that back. Nobody wants to play for the Knicks. The Orlando Magic or the Lakers or something like that. I don't know. I think they're going to try to do something because I think they see that NBA highlights are all around the world. And there's 1 billion people just in India and Pakistan combined on that side of the world who will watch NBA highlights. So I think they're going to do something. What it looks like, I don't know yet.
And Ken, you had talked about logistics when it came to the NFL internationally. You don't have to worry so much about that with basketball. There are quality arenas, there are quality courts everywhere. Plus, you have more schedule flexibility. So you could build in where if an American team goes over, they do their European tour, and you negotiate with the players union, you get 5 to 7 days off once you hit back in the U.S. We can make that work in basketball. You can't do that in football.
Yeah, I really think NBA Europe League is going to take off. I mean, I think it's going to be a big deal. And personally, I mean, I love basketball anyway. I just want to see what they plan to do. We talked about earlier, is it going to be a combo? Do you bring in the European League teams? I mean, how are they going to flesh it out, and what is their ultimate goal in terms of how many franchises and that sort of thing. But as you guys mentioned, I mean, the infrastructure is already there. So I think it's just a matter of, determining your markets and figuring out how you're going to, dole out the talent and then go from there.
Okay, I'm going to throw a few other ideas at you guys, and then I'm going to let you kind of just go off the top of your heads, because there's so many things we could talk about that are just fascinating to me and endlessly so. Quickie though on the NFL before we leave it. What do we think about flag football and a professional league for both women and for men that's going to be fully funded by all the teams?
I used to love to play it. I'm not sure if I'm particularly interested in watching it.
But it's an Olympic event in 2 years though, yeah. Right? Which is the age-old wish for any fledgling sport, is to have that sort of that oomph from Olympic exposure. So different this time? Maybe not.
I'm with Scott on this one. I am unenthusiastic about the viewing possibilities.
I think people will watch it in the Olympics, but it'll be like team handball, which is a fantastic sport that I used to broadcast.
Agreed.
And everybody gets geeked about it every 4 years, and then it completely disappears. Huge in Europe. And I think you'll have some recognizable people. I mean, I saw a poll CFL did the other day, which Canadians should be on Team Canada for this. So it'll be interesting to see, because it's interesting to see NFL/CFL high-level players stripped metaphorically of all the padding and all that stuff. And it's a postage stamp sized version of football, and it's fun and it's quirky. You can watch it, but nobody would watch 16 weeks of it, I don't think. I think it's great to give opportunities for women who are really growing in the sport of gridiron football. I think that's fantastic. So it has its limited appeal for a short period of time. As long as they don't try to do too much with it or try to think that it's too big, I'm in favor of it. Not that I'm going to sit and watch it all the time, but if it's on, I'd go, oh, that looks interesting. Oh, okay, cool.
All right, I can't let my last question go without talking about soccer, right? That's the hook that got me into this whole crazy business in the first place. Where to start? So the FIFA World Cup, right? 48 teams. We know the ticket price thing. I have been seemingly commandeering my social feeds with the boycott FIFA hashtag. I don't know. It feels to me like it is an opportunity that could easily be a couple of self-inflicted wounds here in the United States, as the sport seems to be yet on another precipice of potential growth. And as another sort of entree to this, MLS is, I think, bold, confident, and or questionable move to go to a European schedule, right? Can't wait for those February first week games in Chicago with a if you will, a year-long kind of schedule. USL continues to just churn out teams and stadia and all that stuff. What do you guys think of the state of soccer right now on all these different levels, good, bad, or indifferent?
I'm glad to see the MLS go to an international calendar. I mean, I would love to see, USL, everybody do it. I mean, I think that's, if you're going to be a player in the sport, on an international level, I think because when I look at MLS now, it's kind of like if you're looking at the United Football League or whatever, if you're playing in the off season, that just sort of says you're a minor league, whether you are or not. That wasn't true for the original USFL. I mean, that was, we all love the USFL and we know that was major. But for the most part, if you're not playing in season, there's kind of a reason for it, So I like the fact that they're doing that. I was enthused for a while about the USL talking about how they're moving to promotion relegation, even though, for that to really work, it has to be from top to bottom across the board, across the country. But, I just wonder, you've got certain requirements you have to meet in terms of stadium size. So look at the Cosmos. Say they work their way up to the new top division in USL, but they're in a 5,000 seat stadium. And it has to seat supposedly 17,000, to meet the Division I requirement. So there's a lot of moving parts, but I'm excited to at least see that those parts are moving now.
Here, let's be honest about MLS. They're really just swapping a couple of months for a couple of other months.
Yeah. Yep.
Does European soccer play in March? Yes. MLS plays in March. Does European soccer play in April? Yes. Does European soccer play in August and September and October? Yes. MLS plays in all those months. They're just swapping a few months for a couple others and putting their playoffs in April, where they're not subject to international breaks. And also all the competition now with bowl games and early season NBA and hockey and everything else. So from that perspective, what they're actually gaining, it's not like they're currently playing in the hinterlands right now. They're not, I mean, from some places in public perspective, maybe, but it's not a seismic shift, nor is the current state of a play so foreign or so out of bounds that it's ridiculous. The thing with MLS is that I think, they say it's will facilitate transfer window niceness. And I'm like, okay, but players have been coming here from other countries for 30 years. And even before that for 50 years, it hasn't really seemed to stop people from coming here. If you want to align with the rest of the thing, okay, that's fine. If you want to get your playoffs out of December and into April, okay, I can see that a little bit better. But are you going to have more competition this time of year? You're playing mid-season games. Those mid-season doldrums now are in December and then into February. They're not going to schedule games in Chicago in February, but in 20 years, that's not going to matter because Chicago is going to be warm in February in 20 years. But I just, it's fine. The shift itself is fine. What USL is doing, and I know we're going to get to this, USL, I got to respect the fact that in the last 15 years since the big split with the TOA, they haven't made a whole lot of bad moves. So I admire what they're trying to do. I saw a thing from the players union not too long ago where they tweeted out, 9 teams have folded in the last 10 years. And I'm like, my brother, 9 teams used to fold overnight back when I was trying to sell this game in the 90s. The Gen Zs and these newcomers to the game are like, you don't know what it was like back in the 90s. It's so much better now. It's so much better with stadiums and they're on actual television networks and people are actually going to games.
Yeah. And I like the take on MLS and the season switch is that you still have that dead of winter break, which totally makes sense. So really they're playing kind of a month later than they had and starting up a month earlier. So you can make that work, I think, just by smart scheduling. The GMs in particular seem to be overwhelmingly in favor of this move. So that probably tells me that they did run into some difficulties on an international level with players. So we'll see how it works out, but I don't see it as being a bad move. When I first heard about this idea, I was like, oh, are you nuts? How do you play in Toronto? I mean, we saw the Canadian Premier League final was played in Ottawa in the middle of a blizzard just a few weeks ago.
And that was a hell of a game, by the way. That's usually not the case, but my, oh my. At least I could see an MLS orange ball, perhaps, for marketing purposes.
Right. And then when you look at what USL has done, just over the last 25 years, how much the Division II and Division III level have solidified, where you're not worried not only about the teams that disappear after the season ends, but are these guys going to make it through the season? Are these guys taking care of their players? It's a much different animal than it was. And a lot of that is that they've been able to build these facilities. They have actual soccer facilities, even at the Division III level. So there's more skin in the game. And I think that the thing that heartens me, although I still have logistical concerns about how USL is going to pull off a Division I league in the promotion and relegation, they're taking their time with it. They haven't just thrown it out there and said, hey, guys, you got to make this work. They are taking their time. They could yet delay if they need to, but I think they've been very smart about it.
What are our thoughts on the USL literally going to create a Division I competitor to MLS? And it's already existent after a year. The same against the NWSL on the Women's League, right? Those are two bold moves where we literally have two competing Division I leagues. That hasn't always worked out well in U.S. soccer's histories past, right? Histories, plural. But it's bold, and do you think that's going to, I don't know, for MLS in perspective, and the women's game for that matter, do you think it's going to maybe make any changes to those established leagues now, or is it just going to be more chaos?
Well, seeing any of the news reports or any fans who say, oh, these are competitor leagues, they're truly not able to compete. When USL's D1 league starts probably in 2028, they're going to be 32 years and billions of dollars in investment behind Major League Soccer, which, as we all know, almost folded 25 years ago, and only through the largesse / determination of a handful of people kept going to this day and eventually took hold. They're talking about paying $55,000 up to $70,000 for players in this D1 league. You're not going to get national level players for that. You're not going to get international players who are recognizable to come here for that. This is not going to happen. The women's league, we've already seen good competitive games in markets that, in some places support very well. Jacksonville is apparently doing well, but they're drawing 2,500, 3,000 people a game. You're not going to compete with the NWSL, which took years and years to crack the code itself, right? To the point where it's riding a crest of things and people are investing and their teams are worth hundreds of millions of dollars. So I do not think these are competitors. I think they are alternatives. I think if you can meet the qualifications and call yourself Division I, more power to you. More soccer is good. But to say that they are competing, which is the shorthand that headline writers like to have, the USL Division I is not going to really meaningfully compete with MLS. MLS has all the best markets that they want. They've got all the players. They've got all the sponsors. They've got all the TV deals. That TV deal is a whole nother scenario, right? That may shake itself out by 2028. God bless them, but competing is not an adjective that I would use or a verb.
Just from the financial standpoint of the owners, these may technically be on the same level, but in practice, they really aren't.
Well, that was the point I was going to bring up, is that I think ultimately this is going to be a competition between business model, right? Where MLS is centrally controlled, and USL, at least on the men's side, is more of a franchise model, right? Which is this age-old battle and issue about how to nurture and monetize, whether it's centrally controlled versus having individual teams and franchises and more unfettered competition. I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
A franchise model would have killed MLS in the first 10 years of its existence. Single entity was absolutely necessary. It had some sore points, that were problematic with where player movement and things like that. But now I think they're strong enough to do it. And it's kind of, the single entity bit is more like now on the terms of league sponsors and, TV deals. It is less strict single entity than it was when this league started, when it actually needed it, I think.
And single entity has some advantages when you're dealing with players union, when you're dealing with antitrust issues, when you're dealing with pooled revenues. So there are some of those areas where MLS has really used that to their advantage.
Scott, you want to bite on the World Cup thing? Nobody else has.
Yeah, I love soccer. I loathe FIFA. That's, I'm just disgusted
Completely fair
with the whole thing personally.
Yeah, it's egregious, and it's hard to be supportive, and yet not, right. We'll see how this plays out. Maybe this is, I don't want to say collectively or at least individually, old man yelling at the clouds, but and they're talking about 64 teams for the next one. It's like, where does this end? Which I'm gonna lay the table for you guys to kind of pick up, but let me hint at a potential entree into any other topics that you guys want to throw out, and we'll just kind of jump at them. As you've heard me say, not only or hint at in this conversation, but if you've listened to any of these silly little shows over the years, my lament against the investment bubble, quote unquote, around private equity in particular, but sports as an asset class is astonishing to see, and in my world, very worrisome about the eventualities of what might shake out, especially given somebody who's had a want like me to look at things through an historical prism, right? The rhyming of history. Maybe the mechanisms are a little different, but I don't know. We've seen plenty of implosions over decades and centuries for grand ambitions around professional sports. I'll throw that out there as a thought starter, but pick any topic you want and let's go for it, because there's so many things out there. A lot of them, by the way, I think being inflated by a lot of funny money out there looking for places to go in sports.
I guess I'm not seeing necessarily any evidence of a bubble breaking. I think that in addition to sports investment, and reasons drive that sports investment, the principal reason is that sports can still hold people's attention. You see it from viewership numbers, like 88% of the top 50 programs are sports events. You see that, and you see the billions of dollars in rights fees that are paid for these. It's always tempting for somebody to say, hey, if I get in on the ground level of something and I start it up and I invest for a number of years, I'm still, I could still be way money ahead in the long run. A lot of times that doesn't work out, but I understand the temptation. You look at an entity like Diamond Baseball Holdings, which is just up their holdings to 48 minor league baseball teams by buying three
and a
more
new one that bought 2 or 3 teams
on deck
the other day. Yeah, so more of that coming.
Bought teams in California and Alabama. Obviously, they're looking at starting their own portfolio. So, yeah, I'm not seeing that slowdown yet. There's certainly more temptation to hop in, what we have with indoor football. When was the last time we had people hang on to spring football? When was the last time we saw ownership groups with largesse, with actually the jack to do this, hold on this long? They're still looking for the formula, but they're still in the game. That has not happened. So I think we're still seeing lots of money out there. We are always going to have the temptation, even on a small, like an indoor football level, where locally you could put something out there that sets you apart in the community, where people with money can say, hey, this is my thing. This is what I'm known for out there. I may have, earned my money a different way, but maybe I'm giving back, by providing an entertainment option, but I'm also keeping my name in the news cycle a little bit. So I'm not as worried about money leaving sports, especially not the sports that I tend to concentrate on.
All right, Tim, you talked about some quick things, whatever we want to talk about. I'm just going to give you some quick bullets. All right. Arena football is deader than Elvis, never going back to what it was. I'm not even talking about the NBC version where it was promoted as a major league thing because NBC had lost the NFL. I'm talking about even before that, when they started to strip away the Iron Man, thing, which made it unique and interesting. Arena football now is just, it's not even worth your time. Don't bother with it. Somehow indoor soccer still exists, but it will never be what it was. And we tend to romanticize what it was to begin with. Loved indoor soccer, still watch. It's not going back to what it was. I still love minor league baseball, but like you said, it's become more like fiefdoms than it ever was, with one entity owning so many teams, it getting homogenized, it getting under the control of Major League Baseball so tightly, and teams holding their communities hostage, just like big league teams do. I hope the NWSL can keep Trinity Rodman, but no one player is going to make or break any particular league. They are going to have to open, and they are looking for ways to open the purse strings a little bit more so they can keep that type of talent. That's a positive, but if it doesn't work out, there'll be some other player in the next 5 years do the same thing. WNBA also having a moment. They're creating heroines and villains, which is things that you need to be a successful league. Sometimes the same player can be both, depending on your perspective, right? Yeah. To some people, Caitlin Clark is a hero and Angel Reese is a villain. To other people, Angel Reese is the hero and Caitlin Clark is the villain. It'd be interesting to see how long that one can last. And until you brought it up to me, Tim, I had no idea the NASCAR lawsuit was going on. But the thing that came to my mind when I read that was, hey, Jeffrey Kessler was finally on the winning side of a court case in sports, which has never happened before.
I never thought of it from that perspective, but yeah, that's interesting because Kessler's obviously, if you go back into history, right, very, very prominent in things like the North American Soccer League Player Association. I think whole challenging lots of things in this realm, but it's interesting that you bring up the NASCAR thing because it. And I don't want to step on Scott's toes because I'm sure he's got a list too. But it's interesting that they settled when they did during this trial. And if you haven't been following it, it's Michael Jordan and his team and another one were sort of fighting against NASCAR for literally very heavy-handed / monopolistic kind of practices in terms of team charters and stuff. And the natural outcome of this trial, and it seemed like it was definitely going that way, would have been to somehow either break up NASCAR or allow or make more easy a challenger to NASCAR, which sounds like a really difficult thing to do, even with all the private equity money in the world. And it seems to me like the cooler heads prevailed at the end, recognizing that, you know what, busting up NASCAR is probably not the best thing to do because it's got all the history and all the stars and all that stuff. Standing up a challenger league, if you will, in that case, is going to be so impossible to do. We better figure this out and quickly because, I don't know, it's just really interesting. But that's where it was going. I think NASCAR is absolutely a monopoly.
Well, a historical one, and by virtue of the fact that, like you said, the inertia and the fact that the fans like drivers. I mean, you could call it something else. If their favorite driver goes to a different competing circuit, they're not going to be able to have the cachet of a NASCAR, the history of NASCAR and all that. They'd be looked at as just going for the money, which I think in that fan base would be seen as untoward. So I think you'd have the same, like no one has tried to start a serious NASCAR challenger in its history. And especially if you were going to do it, like the company I work for always says, this is a great business to be in. When NASCAR was getting those huge TV contracts and was really exploding into the mainstream of American sports, that would have been the time for someone to say, hey, maybe we could do something here too, but nobody has done it. It's really expensive to do. It'd be really hard to get recognizable drivers that would move the needle. And so I don't see that company, but absolutely monopoly. Yeah, but it's a monopoly by de facto more than anything else. I don't think they did any antitrust practices, but obviously Michael Jordan thought differently.
Scott, what do you got?
I was just thinking, you guys are talking about NASCAR, and I spent the first 16 years of my career working in Talladega, Alabama. So NASCAR was a huge part of what I had to cover. But I can now say I never cared for it. And when I left a newspaper job in 2015, that was the last time that I had to cover NASCAR. And I haven't paid any attention to it since. I couldn't tell you who won the championship last year or what they're doing. And yeah, when I saw that you brought up that there was some sort of lawsuit, I thought, oh, how nice. I mean, I paid absolutely no attention to it. But, oddly enough, I've gotten a lot more casual as far as being a sports fan over the past few years. I mean, being retired and everything where you don't necessarily have to follow things. But I did finally learn that my favorite form of gridiron football is the Canadian League. And so when the CFL announced that they were changing their rules, to me, that was kind of like the biggest news story football-wise for me of the year. And I'm just really intrigued to see how it plays out because I'm an American, so I can't really speak to the tradition of it. And I understand completely the people who, were raised on Canadian football and how they may be outraged. But the rule changes that they made, I kind of like. I mean, I like the fact that they're moving
talk about that for a second.
goalpost to.
Yeah, what were they? Tell me, because they're going to bring them in over a 2-year period.
Yeah, well, one thing they did, the field itself, instead of 110 yards, it's just going to be 100 yards now. It's still going to be 65 yards wide, so you don't have to worry about that. I mean, it's still 3 downs to make 10 yards. But what they did to the end zone, which previously the end zones were 20 yards deep with the goalposts on the goal line, now the end zones are going to be 15 yards deep with the goalposts at the end, which I think just opens up a lot more space, for the passing game. I mean, you can still basically throw a long pass from the 10-yard line. But they've also tweaked the rouge, whereas now you don't get a point for a missed field goal. It's got to be a punt that's down in the end zone or a kickoff that's down. So I think some of the tweaks they made overall are going to be helpful for the game. Now, a lot of people are wondering, well, why are you doing? There's nothing wrong with it. Why are you changing it? But I don't know. To me, I just kind of think they're modernizing it a bit, and I'm looking forward to it. I know this coming season, the only rule change I think that's going into effect is the rouge, and they won't have the shortened field and everything until, I guess, 2027. But I'm already looking forward to that, just seeing how it looks and what the fan reaction is going to be to those changes, because for them, that's pretty darn dramatic.
It is. Love the CFL myself and followed that story closely. And there is split opinions in Canada of saying, oh, you're making us into the NFL, which, the NFL is very popular in Canada, but they're very fiercely provincial about their own game, as well they should be. To me, shrinking the field I was like, that made me skittish, but as long as they didn't get rid of the 3 downs, which I think is the essence of Canadian football, and it's still a wider field and 12 players on a side, I think it'll be interesting to see. A lot of people take this out on the commissioner because he's new and he's looked at as this interloper coming in, but the board of governors of the CFL voted for this. I mean, they think that it's the natural evolution of their sport, and we'll see. And here's a fun fact that the audience may not know. American football, until 1912, our field was 110 yards as well. And we shrunk it in 1912. The Canadians are just 113 years behind us.
Which is pretty good for them. No, I didn't say that. Moving the goalposts, of course, makes a ton of sense. Just from a player safety standpoint, I too was a little bit hesitant on the reduction of the field size. But you still have the 12 guys. You still have multiple guys in motion. You still have a lot of the things that make 3 downs. You still have a lot of the things that make Canadian football unique and different and exciting are still going to be part of the game. If anything, eliminating that extra 10 yards in the middle of the field moves you into field goal and or touchdown range a lot sooner. So it could have some benefits. We talked about how difficult it is to hang on long enough to where you have your history and where that's a draw for your league. Well, the Canadian Football League has been able to do that. And so a lot of the pushback against that is because of what they've been able to build through, more than 100 years for a lot of these franchises.
Yeah, of course. People like us, though, at least me, would love to see them come back in the United States again, right? The Birmingham Barracudas, was it, Scott?
That was it.
I mean, that period of time when they were in the United States, this is fascinating to me. And I don't know, with the UFL, we talked about it earlier. This is an asset to talk about that could be maybe merged and put together. I don't know. All right. Lightning round time, guys. And then I'm going to let you guys promote before we get out of here. So just feel free to bite or not, or the yay, nay, or head scratch, whatever you want. What do we think about the Las Vegas A's and the Tampa Bay Rays, 2 teams that seem to be curiously interesting right now in Major League Baseball?
Rays fan here. I don't know that the new owners are going to have any more luck getting a new building on the Hillsborough side, which is where I think they should be. And then the A's seem to be like a dysfunctional mess, but Vegas is another thing that's having a moment. They've gone from having basically no sports to having all the sports.
It's just hard for me to get used to Las Vegas having major professional sports. I mean, I know it's, but like you said, it's just, used to, you thought, well, no one lives in Las Vegas. They just go to Las Vegas to gamble. And now they're hitting all the major sports. So it's just, I'm still having a period of adjustment there.
I think the strip does too. I don't know if they're going to be able to squeeze that stadium in there on the strip there. We'll see if it's real. I don't know. What do you think, Paul?
If I remember correctly, the footprint is actually a little bit bigger than the Minnesota Twins.
I thought it was smaller actually, but you might be right.
Yeah, they're pretty comparable. So the thing that with Vegas and Los Angeles in the NFL is just to see the number of visiting fans. The home field advantage is certainly reduced in those locations.
How about realignment? Yeah, what do you think about realignment? Merging the leagues all together, and there's already probably no distinction very much between American and national leagues anymore. But what do we think about Manfred's hinting of realignment?
Hate it.
Yeah.
Baseball was so much better when the leagues were separate, and the only times that you played each other were in the World Series and the All-Star game. I know I'm showing my age. It's fun, obviously, if you live in American League City, to see National League stars and vice versa. But interleague play is played out, and I hate it. I know it's mathematically necessary, but I don't like it.
I agree with you 100%.
How about the
I see some of the advantages, but and I didn't even follow baseball all that closely when I was younger. But if there's any sport where tradition means something, that's probably it right there.
All right, perfect segue into the Savannah Bananas and the Banana League that they're great. It's not just them touring anymore. They've got a league of like 4 different teams and stuff. What do we think of the Bananas? Good, bad, or indifferent for baseball?
They're doing for baseball what the UFL could do for football. Just show it's a testing ground for promotion. It's a testing ground for some silly rules, but maybe something could be derived out of some of those silly rules. It's they know their business, and they know their customer, and they have done a phenomenal job. That guy should be teaching some kind of sports business class somewhere.
Well, he does. Jesse Cole was one of our guests about 2 years ago when we were just kind of lighting the fuse on it, and he's got a couple of books out and stuff. He's you got to give him a ton of credit, because he's all about fast failing, trying stuff, see if it's a good idea, collectively get the team on board and see if it works. If it doesn't work, fine, we'll move on to the next thing. He's I don't know, I'm going to go modern day Bill Veeck, but maybe.
As far as the Bananas, God bless them. They're obviously very popular. It's just not the way I want to consume baseball. It's not the essence of it to me. I like the Globetrotters too, but I don't think of them as more than showmen. And so I'm not going to the Bananas, but I know lots of people do, so I can't denigrate it at all. The guy's done a fantastic job with it.
Yeah, I've seen like 5 minutes of highlights, and I'm good.
All right. What about the newly announced and starting this season, the Women's Professional Baseball League? What do you think?
I'm looking forward to that. I think that has the potential to be something. I like women's sports anyway, and it's just to finally have it back. I know everybody's going to make the league give their own comparisons and that sort of stuff, but I think this could be a really good quality league with a chance to grow.
I really enjoy women's soccer, and I can understand the appeal of women's basketball, especially from when you enjoy defense, like players who actually play the whole game. Women's soccer, to me, often the speed of it allows me to see what they're trying to do in a way that the men's game maybe mystifies me a little bit. I'm not sure how well all of that transfers to baseball, especially with relatively high quality minor league baseball so widely available. It's something I'm keeping my eye on, but I'm just not sure how much of an entertainment value that brings to me personally.
Agreed. I think there are a lot of women who love hardball and can play it at a high level. Whether the market will say, of all my baseball options, I'm going to give this a long-term look. I'm not sure that it's there, but opportunities are opportunities. So I hope they make the most of it.
Cue the Colorado Silver Bullets documentary to remember the initial forays into that. All right, 2 more, and then one last one, and then it's promotion time, and you guys can get back to your lives. for two different reasons, two different trajectories, but they both share similar names. Major League Cricket and Major League Rugby. Anything on this?
Cricket's fun. I got into cricket during lockdown when there's nothing else to watch. I said, now I'm going to sit down and learn the rules. And I have, and I would love to see a game in real life because I think it would be fun. I don't know that I would go to a bunch of them, but I think it's super. And I have no interest in rugby whatsoever, but that's just me. I know it's very popular as well. Cricket's cool. Rugby is just a different kind of, a code of football that other sports have come out of. I know it's very popular in a lot of spaces, and those guys are rough and tough, so good on them, but not for me.
I enjoy rugby, but I've been really frustrated with the league, and the contraction and stuff, and teams or franchises just upping and disappearing. And as far as cricket, it's one of those things that I pick up a little at a time. If there's a game on ESPN Plus, I'll watch a little of it and maybe learn a new rule one week and then one the next. But whether it's going to be something I'm going to become a quote unquote serious fan, I'm not sure about that.
And cricket is something that I haven't been able to really get into. I guess I'm not really seeing the hue and cry out there for any kind of American league for the most part. Rugby, boy, have they gone through the tough times. They had they had their final on Fox. It looked like they maybe are going to take that next step. And then they ran into some problems with franchise ownership. These guys who wanted to name their franchises after drinks that they invented and all kinds of weird stuff like that. Fight, a couple of them leave. And then this off season was an absolute nightmare for them. Losing teams, some that they didn't expect, and even the Utah team kind of at the last minute. So they are really going to have to retrench, try to keep some kind of a base, because it really looks like they might be on the way out.
I also think the women's sevens are actually more interesting, and I saw that during the Olympics. The competition, it's short, it's straightforward, and to your point earlier about sort of the athleticism of the women's game in some respects, it does actually translate not unlike soccer. And maybe is a better version of the sport versus, and again, also relative to other, rugby is an international sport, cricket's an international sport, right? The U.S. very much on the learning curve of said sport and stuff. All right, here's the last one. College bowls is timely as we record this episode going into the beginning of bowl season, I think actually today. Do we think it's going to collapse? Are we going to see more Bush's Beans bowls and Duke's Mayo bowls and stuff, or are we maybe nearing peak bowls and maybe the beginning of the end of this crazy system? Or do you care?
Collapsing and with good riddance. Here's the thing: the time period of the 4 traditional bowls on New Year's Day basically spanned 1960 to 1980. Every single Gen Xer or Boomer came of age in the teenage years during that period. That's why we remember it so fondly. Then it became economically viable for there to be more bowls. There are too many bowls. ESPN owns and operates a lot of them, televises almost all of them. There's a demand for them. But if players keep opting out and teams say, if it's not CFP, we're not going. We're not going to go to Shreveport in December. Sorry. That's what's going to make it collapse. And I think that's with good reason and good riddance.
It's hard to see it continuing without some kind of changes. I mean, you have teams that are opting out because they don't have coaches anymore. Well, when was the last time the New England Patriots hired away the New York Giants coach, and the Giants said, you know what, we're not going to do the playoffs this year. It's so bizarre to me that this can be done before the end of the season. And now that players are earning money from this whole deal, why isn't any of the money tied to completing the season, including a bowl game? Okay, you get 2/3 of your NIL money, and the other third comes after your season is done. So, it seems as if there are some possible solutions to this. I'm just not sure. With Notre Dame opting out, with so many teams and players, when does the viewing public say, what is the point of all this? I don't know, I'll watch the NBA or the NFL on New Year's Day now.
All right, Scott, you get the last word on this, but before you do, you got to tell me the official name of the game in Birmingham this year.
Oh, wow, that's a good question. I have no idea because I don't know who's sponsoring. It's probably, I honestly haven't paid that much attention. I wrote the other day, I think last year I watched maybe one bowl game, then the national championship game, one of the playoff games. I'm kind of footballed out by the time we get to this point, and just especially the minor bowls, they just don't interest me. And I think now with the playoffs, they'll expand to 16 sooner than later. They'll probably end up expanding to 24. And at that point, there's just absolutely no reason for any bowls whatsoever.
So in other words, we're not going to see you in the stands at Protective Stadium on December 29th at the J-Lab Birmingham Bowl between 6-6 Georgia Southern and 5-7 Appalachian State. Is that correct?
Well, if you do, that means I've been taken hostage because I have no plans to voluntarily do that.
Fair enough. Okay. I'll just be sitting there by myself in the end zone with my $10 seat, enjoying the festivities on a hopefully a blustery and enjoyable sunny Monday afternoon game. What a great slot that is. Guys, this has been absolutely fantastic. Time to either again or newly promote your various things that you have going on. What do you want people to know and or how to follow you and or participate in your worlds of forgotten sports? Ken, why don't we start with you?
Please check out Soccer Rewind on YouTube. Soccer Rewind 2024 is the handle there. Sports Rewind 2025. And then my monthly podcast that you so graciously praised, Let's Twist Again, a monthly deep dive into the fortunes of the long ago and long dead Indiana Twisters of the Continental Indoor Soccer League. You can reach all of that stuff through my website, KENN.com.
Love, love, love. Scott, go ahead.
It's Adamson Media. I do a lot of sports history, but I've segued in the last year or so to fiction writing, which has nothing to do with sports. So, but yeah, I'm never going to walk away completely from sports writing.
And what about the book? You got to plug the book. It's still out there. The Home Team.
Oh yes, the Home Team. Just a story of Birmingham's pro football teams up into the current Stallions. Haven't written about them yet because they haven't folded yet.
But you're anticipating? What do you got? News for us to break?
Always take the under.
Paul, you get the last word. What do you got? What do you got now and going on?
OurSportsCentral.com, my main site, as I mentioned, been running for more than 25 years now. Also StatsCrew.com. And for my main alternative sports passion, USFLsite.com. The big project that we've been working on for some time is funding the digital conversion of all the 3/4-inch tapes of USFL games. We were able to take a major step in the last few months and get a lot of the 1983 games digitized, so that footage is saved. We're working on 1984 right now. Ken has been involved in that effort as well, but big project, and we're continuing to plug away on it.
God bless. In the absence of no ESPN Classic anymore, we need more of this kind of stuff. Right. And in the age of YouTube and fast channels and stuff and streaming, I got to think there's plenty of room for these kinds of things and then some. And God forbid, Ken, another ASL final or something maybe from, I don't know, the old AISA. I mean, there's so many. I don't pray for these things, but there are garage sales and estate sales that happen every single day in this country, and there's got to be some of the gems of stuff that we haven't found or thought lost forever. That is, in a small part, keeps me going for this illness that I continue to recover from. But I love it. It makes me feel good, and conversations like this with people like you guys also make me feel good. Have a great holiday season, guys. Thank you for making time. We should do this more often, but put a note in your calendar for at least December of next year, if not sooner.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks so much.
All right, cool beans. Let's do some promotional goodness, shall we? Paul Reeths. His book is The United States Football League, 1982 to 1986. Buy yourself a copy through the links from the episode description here or on our website at goodseatsstillavailable.com. You can also find Paul's other websites, OurSportsCentral.com, as well as StatsCrew.com. Check both of those out and bookmark them and visit them often. Kenn Tomasch can be found at Kenn.com. All things Kenn at Kenn.com. Including, by the way, is links to his YouTube video series, Sports Rewind and Soccer Rewind. And he's also got a really cool one in soccer, the soccer phenomenon there, called Let's Twist Again, which is his monthly journey back to his days as being the voice of the Indiana Twisters of the old Continental Indoor Soccer League. So check Kenn's stuff out there. And Scott Adamson, last but not least, you should get his book. It is called The Home Team, My Bromance with Off-Brand Football. Again, also available wherever good books are found, our website, or the links there in the show description. And all things Scott can be found at adamsonmedia.com, ADAMSON media.com. Our website, goodseatsstillavailable.com. You should know that by now. All of our episodes are posted there each and every week. All the links to books and things that we're pitching that our guests have available for you can be conveniently clicked on and linked there, and some shekels of referral love gotten. We appreciate that for us. Our email address is hello@goodseatsstillavailable.com. And check us out on the socials. You'll find us on X, Twitter, at Good Seats Still. You'll find us on the Blue Sky at goodseatsstillavailable.com. And you will find us just about everywhere else at Good Seats Still Available, all one word, including YouTube, where we publish all of these episodes as well. As the year ends, I want to thank, of course, my compatriot down there in Atlanta. His name is Jerry Payne, and his audio excellence each and every week. We could not do this show without him, and we could not do this show without you. You know who you are, listening to this episode, and hopefully many more episodes, both past and to come. Thank you for making 2025 an interesting one for us this year. So much more ahead in the new year. Please stay tuned to your feeds. If you like what you hear, tell your friends, and they can tell their two friends, and so on and so on. Let's keep growing this thing, and we've got some other stuff to kind of enhance this experience for you planned for 2026. So hold on to your seats, because we've got some interesting things ahead. Great conversations and much, much more. Wishing you the best for not only the rest of this holiday season, but the beginning of New Year 2026. Let's hope it's nominally better than this year. And I thank you profusely for listening, and I cannot thank you enough. Take care of yourselves. See you soon. We love you.